Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh from Whitmarsh Consulting Group doing a CEO interview with Daya Naef, who is the CEO of the Success Partner. Um, I'll be perfectly honest. I've never spoken to Daya before, so I had a brief little conversation and some technical issues, which she helped walk me through. And so I'm looking forward to learning a bit more about her. So welcome aboard here, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, David.
Yeah, and so whereabouts are you? You're
Yeah. So today I'm in Daphne, Alabama. I'm at my parents' house, and sometimes I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I also spend a lot of time in the DC metro area. I have a lot of business contacts up there.
cool, cool. And so tell us a bit about your business and what it is that the Success Partner does.
Yeah. So I run a company called the Success Partner. So we do a blend of coaching and consulting for small law firms. We call ourselves a co-pilot, and that comes from the analogy from the entrepreneurial world that we're building the plane and flying the plane at the same time. It also has us there in the leadership. So we're fractional parts of the C-suite, wearing multiple hats, working with the leader to uncover um, ecosystem or systemic problems in the organization, or ways, of course, that you can get better in your organization, even if you feel things are going well and we're looking at some of your strengths.
Interesting. So what have you noticed that's or what have you um, learned that would be different in the legal space compared to, the general space? Anything in particular that stands out?
Well, generally, like attorneys are not, we're not trained to run small business, and a lot of them don't actually have that sort of entrepreneurial vibe or bug or in their blood kind of system. It's just they want to practice law, they want to bring a service, they want to sustain an operation, but being a business owner is like not the draw. So if you had somebody that wanted to open a bakery because that's what we were passionate about. And they wanted to run a business and they really liked the numbers and the crunching and numbers crunching and people and marketing and really liked all those aspects of the business, then that's one thing. So that's a true like entrepreneurial spirit. Whereas attorney, we're kind of entrepreneurs by default. Like we don't fit in the larger firm structure. It's not always easy to go to a small firm because you really have to do a lot of like premarital counseling to like join a firm to make sure it's a good fit. So that leaves you running your own business by default.
Right. And so is there any specific tools or techniques that you are designed for that industry, or is it just that there's just so many lawyers that out there that you have fell into that niche by accident?
Um, yes, I wouldn't say by accident. I come from the small firm world. I did run a small firm for a few years and also grew up in self-employment and entrepreneurship. So I've been a business owner for 21 years now. So this is one iteration of my business that started going on 7 years, at least 7 years in February. This particular coaching and consulting business where I'm focusing on lawyers. I didn't originally intend to focus on lawyers. I
Mhm.
went to coaching school. I went through a certification process that took almost 3 years. So a very in-depth training process. And at one point they asked me, well, who are you gonna work with once you get everything rolling and get out in the world? Like I said, anybody but lawyers. So they kind of reflected, they reflected that that was a little bit short-sighted. Of course, I can do whatever I want. It's my own business, but it was a little short-sighted. So it was an industry that I knew well intimately. It was a industry that I was connected in, so I had a network. There was a need. There's definitely a need for
Yeah.
this, and my clientele would also have an ability to pay. So to put all those things in a little Venn diagram and then say you're not going to work with that population was a little bit like shooting myself in the foot. So Success Partner was born in 2018. Um, advice from working with a coach, going through a coaching program, and so that's it. That's the population that we serve.
Yeah, they can be different. Like lawyers in general can be difficult personalities,
Mhm.
right? Very similar to engineers,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so I guess that causes some grief on occasions too. But
Yeah, it's a different personality type like that I'm looking for. And I think what you're reflecting to, especially when you compare them to engineers, is sort of that linear thinking, that very
mhm,
high on the knowledge base, um, very risk spotting on the risk scale. Whereas, like I kind of mentioned earlier, the entrepreneurs, they're more risk tolerant. And then I myself, I'm a creative. So I say I'm an artist that has a real job, or a job. And I don't want to insult any of my artist colleagues, but so a very creative thinker, very open-minded, a very cloud thinking versus
mhm,
linear thinking. And so I do bring that to the conversation with attorneys that I work with who tend to be black and white, letter of the law. This is it. This is the way it's always been done, or this is the way someone else told me to do it, and very kind of locked into that. So coming in from a fresh perspective, finding those little places where you can make an entree into changing the conversation or changing the narrative. Because if they're going to do what they've always done, then there's no need to go through any coaching or consulting or updating the practice if they're just going to do what they've always done.
mhm.
So there must be some reason. Uh, the pain point is usually a profitability thing. That's usually the first thing someone says to me when I mention what I do. They're like, "Oh, I work really hard for the money I'm making," or "I'm increasing the top line, but the bottom line is increasing faster." So different little things, and they usually say, "Oh, I'm considering hiring a salesperson," or "I'm considering hiring or spending more money on marketing." And I'm always, if they're willing to listen, it's like, okay, well, let's back up for a minute and see if we can look holistically at your organization, your goals, your vision, before you make an additional expense into those specific areas. Let's look at everything as a whole and see what can be tweaked and what can be advanced. So sort of like getting an annual checkup. You might go in and say, I'm noticing this or that. But then when you go in and you get an annual checkup or look at all the systems of the body, you can say, oh, well, this is tweaked. If you tweak this, then that will go away. You're like, well, I never would have thought of that. Well, of course not. Not if you're not talking to someone who's trained to look for those things.
Mhm. So before you became certified as a coach, you were an HR practitioner?
I'm an attorney.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Yes. And
yeah, wow.
and in a small firm,
Congratulations.
thank you. And in a small firm, yes, HR, billing, marketing, yes, everyone wears every hat in a small firm. So, yeah.
And what type of law did you want to practice?
So I did construction law for about 18 years. My firm, when I was in the small partnership, we did construction, general litigation, general counsel type work. And then in my solo firm, I did just construction.
Wow. Oh, so you weren't even in like um, employee resources or anything like that where
I feel yes, I've learned my people skills by both schools, School of Hard Knocks, seeing how my clients did it in a way that could have been better, and then also going through coach training, which is a lot about how you're showing up as a person, um, and how that affects your behavior, and then vice versa, like how your behavior is indicative of how you're being as a person.
yeah, so that's awesome. So good awareness to realize that there is a market there, and no wonder why you can talk legal with these folks, so that
I
makes
can
a lot
speak
of
the
sense.
language. Yes, I speak the
Yeah,
language. I have the membership card, the secret handshake, all that.
yeah. I was in my head, I kind of had a little thought and a little internal laugh, thinking so many coaches start engagements with some form of a DISC assessment,
Mm.
right? And it would be funny to see, 20 lawyers in a room all take the DISC assessment, and all of them would almost be identical,
I
right?
have seen 20 lawyers in a room take a DISC assessment, and they're not all identical. They do end up being in the, I think it's the, I can't remember if it's the C or the S, but it's the one that's very high knowledge.
Hmm.
But you will get a handful of D's, of strong doers. And I myself, I'm an I, so I'm usually like the least. I's and the one that's very sensitive and feeling are usually the least ones represented in a group of attorneys. But we're all a little bit of all of them.
Hmm.
But yeah, and we can learn, learning to cover the other bases. I don't start out with an assessment. I let people bring to me what they know about themselves already and what they know about themselves and their team already and like where they want to go. So often picking something that you want or desire can be the first step. And then if you want to go back and do assessments, and some people have already done them, so like do
Hmm.
what they took and then how they relate to it is more important, I think, for our work than to
Yeah,
actually assign them
it's just,
something.
so what type of companies or size-wise, like do you find that because you're already niche, right? So let's even dive deeper into this focus, right? So what, like larger companies, small companies, who do you find ends up, who do you, find usually finds you and wants to engage with you?
Yeah, it is usually firms on the smaller side, even solos or solo with a few attorneys under them. Um, that would be solo. Solo as the one partner or the one principal lawyer, and then
Hmm.
other associates that work under them. So generally speaking, I mean, my brand of marketing and networking is very relationship based and very individualized. So the people that I'm coming in front of and the people who are finding me um, goes into that sort of smaller firm ilk. I do get work from larger organizations, and they'll bring me in to work with partners or put on continuing legal education, and that can be firms of any size.
Oh, interesting. So is that also so legal education? That's something that you do as well. So tell
Yes.
me a bit about that. Okay.
Yes, so I do continuing legal education. So I've been approved in several states, and just give me some lead time, and I can get approved, usually in other states as well. And then I also contract with some of the larger legal education providers to do programs. So it's usually around my two key topics right now, rainmaking for women lawyers. So I've spoken
Mhm.
at several women's affinity groups with that product, and then also AI in law firms. So, and that kind of fits into my whole sort of law practice management approach and system, is how to automate, how to be efficient, how to get more time, get more work-life balance, getting more life and less work by using some of these tools that are available to us now.
Mhm. And it's funny you mention AI. What impact have you seen AI in legal firms or even in your coaching and training practice?
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting there. Law, like usual, is slow to adapt to or adopt using the AI technology. There's a fear of ethical issues and professional responsibility issues, but I'm staying up on the opinions on that so that we can stay compliant while also being efficient. I think broad scale use of it will be another year or two, and the dramatic difference it's going to make to billing. So billing, I've seen alternative fee arrangements and flat fee billing coming for a while, and it's going to be a necessity now that we're not using all those hours to produce work
Mhm.
product. We're going to be looking at the value that the work product brings.
Interesting. I would not even thought I'm big into AI. I would not have thought that it would really affect. Having said that, I have consulted with ChatGPT on a few, things around settlement of a house and whatnot, and it's actually pretty darn good, right? So imagine if you had a good hyper focus library, it'd even be better. So where do you see or do you see any major change in the space other than what we talked about with AI? Anything else that might alter what you're doing and how lawyers are doing things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So lawyering has been changing quite a bit over the last, I'd say, 20 years. The competition in the market from non-lawyer practice, consulting companies, software that handles like traffic tickets. So some of those um, blanket automated ability that's been coming and taking what would normally be or was 20 years ago legal work away from the actual legal profession. So that's been an issue to adapt. And then we have attorneys coming into the marketplace who are demanding work-life balance. Wonderful. My generation never even thought to demand work-life balance. What do
Yeah,
you mean? But they are. And so we're going to need to adjust the expectations. So we can't, and I mean by adjusting the expectations, I mean if there's a firm who's used to having each person producing a certain amount of hours of work, and that's how that data is fed into the schema of the organization, well, that's not going to happen anymore. So how are we going to adjust what the expectations of the firm are for output, and how are we going to adjust the expectations of the client, you know, and or like, which part's the horse and which part's
yeah,
the cart. So you can't just go back and demand the workforce go back to the traditional model because that ship has sailed.
yeah, totally. Huh. Now I know when we had a little chat prior, I asked you if you were going to write it, if you had a book, and you said that's something that you maybe thought about. Now I think you could write. I think there's a good compelling story there, right? That would be much different than a lot of coaches and leaderships books. I think yeah, I encourage you to write that. I would read it. So.
That's awesome. Thank you for reflecting that. So would it be the trends, the nuts and bolts, all of the above? What do you think would be the best for
You
my
know,
audience?
it's interesting. I think that you could probably do it both,
Yeah.
right? You could probably incorporate both. Um, and I don't know if you could run, the different chapters parallel, but taking two perspectives that, the trends versus the nuts and bolts, as you said. Um, but I think you could almost play the two. It would be interesting.
I like your idea, David. I might work on that.
Yeah, I don't know what I would call it though. I don't have anything clever for you, but I can work on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will credit you with the title if you come up with a good one.
And so what so it's interesting. So your engagements, if we were to start from the beginning, generally don't, so many times people just say, "Oh, we need training or we need coaching," right? And it's like, first of all, how do we qualify that, right? But in a lot of cases, it's just, because there's mayhem and budget, right? So those two things usually are probably responsible for like 90% of training. But you actually, you know, have a conversation about the issues they're facing and then customize your coaching and training to to address their goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. very hard to scale, but very impactful, right?
Yeah, true. So scaling from my side. So yes, my vision will be to have some more of me working for me at some point. But currently, yes, I'm chief cook and bottle washer, and so when you hire the success partner, I will be very integral in the process. I will be who you're meeting with, and then we do have a team of strategic partners who crunch numbers, who help with recruiting, who help with marketing, that kind of thing. But again, until you don't want to look at one specific thing until you've looked at everything.
Hmm. And so I love that approach. I love it. But truthfully, it's probably a little more marketing and a little more digging up than some of the other folks because uh, I would think it would be hard to communicate with some of those lawyers off the bat to find those needs, to have that conversation. But ultimately, I think you provide a much higher value at the end of the day. So I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna give you the opportunity to give a little plug, how to contact you, and of course, if anybody's watching this anywhere below, you'll be able to get whatever contact information Daya puts up to get a hold of you, whether it's her LinkedIn address or email or phone number, that'd be up to her. But you can definitely reach out to her and get on her calendar and have a conversation. And but you better be ready to know what your issue is because that's how she's going to help you.
Well, we'll uncover it in the conversation. So
Okay. All
yes.
right. Yeah. So don't have to do too much homework. You just have to
Show
make
up
the
and
conversation.
show up and be willing to have an honest conversation.
Perfect. All right. And is there should they check out any website or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is thesuccesspartner.net. I think if you put in com, it will redirect to that. And I'm all over LinkedIn and pretty much anywhere social media. My marketing team has me all over all the social media. So I'm not hard to find either by Daya Naef or the Success Partner.
Wonderful. I wish you all the success. I love what you're doing. It's very inspiring. So I love it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And have your parents got over the fact that you're not practicing law yet because you're at their house? So they like, yeah, my daughter used to be a lawyer, but now she's like some coach or trainer or
We're
something.
not sure what she does. Yeah, I don't think they know what I do. But yeah, they weren't too worried about it because they knew I mean, I was raised as an entrepreneur, so it was always something that I can adapt into. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, great meeting you.
Nice to
Thank you
meet
very
you
much
too.
for your time.
Okay.
All right. Take care.